So they are trying to BS everyone, and even J.D. Vance, for God's sakes, is like, well, I'm not quite sure why. I don't know. Because there's two different. I'd like to finish my full sentence, please.
Abby Phillip's show turned into the scene of yet another confident MAGA supporter completely falling apart after Setmayer delivered a sharp criticism of both him and the troubled, deeply flawed Trump 2.0 administration. We're going to take a look at clips from this panel discussion on Abby Phillip's show, featuring Setmayer, Scott Jennings, and several other guests. I'll also be sharing my own thoughts and reactions throughout the discussion. So let's jump right in and watch it together.
A lot of this has to get, I mean, it is true. A lot of the technical issues around the nuclear piece do have to get worked out in the 60 days. And I'll just reiterate what I told you yesterday. The president told me on Sunday, if they don't perform, if they don't do what they say they're going to do, we will hit them again. So he's not taking military action off the table.
It took them 2 years. What makes you think that the Trump administration can do it in 60 days?
For nothing. We shouldn't. And we shouldn't. We should make sure that there are safeguards. There shouldn't be sanctions relief without certain examples by Iran that they're going to live up to it. We shouldn't have any of this. They shouldn't be getting money. And you know what? You know who all agreed with that? You did. I did. Back in 2015 when we were critical of Barack Obama's deal with Iran. That was the exact same criticisms. The exact same criticisms that we had for the Iran deal in the Obama administration are present in this one. So the mental gymnastics here that are going on to try to rationalize the fact that Donald Trump is surrendering to Iran, he's bored. He has made a strategic mistake that is it's a quagmire right now. And a lot of people understand this is politically really bad for the president. So he's just trying to do what he does and sell a con.
It is true. Okay, let's play off of that. Let's talk about selling a con for a second. We are engaged in a series of negotiations with an entire regime that is based on conning. Let me finish.
I didn't say
And with this instance, there was a lot of kabuki theater that occurred under both the Obama and Biden administrations that I seem to remember certain individuals in our general circles, including some of us running cover for, because right now, unlike in other centuries of the historical previous politics, every single negotiation is played out on international media. Our enemy knows what we decide the minute it's out of the individuals' mouths. So there is a necessity for bluffing and kabuki theater in order to get here. You can smile at it. It is indeed.
Okay, so what are the objectives of this deal? Because Trump initially said that no nuclear weapons. But let me finish what he said, that no nuclear weapons and regime change. Regime change is obviously not happening. And then you look at nuclear weapons. The International Atomic Energy Agency now says that the risk is higher than before the war for Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. So if in 60 days Trump can negotiate a deal that says no nuclear weapon and enrichment capped at 3%, that's what the preamble of the JCPOA says. If he can negotiate something better than that, then I'll have it. That would be a win for America. But I just doubt their ability to do that in such a rushed timeline.
Briefly, almost since the start of this conflict, the president of the United States and various other representatives of the administration have been talking about this being over. It's already done. We pretty much got a deal worked out. At those times, what was going on? There were no details about the deal so much. Actually, there was once before. We've been here where they spelled out a deal that didn't actually exist at all. At this point, I'm not even sure if we should give them any credence whatsoever with respect to the deal that is kind of vaguely written and vaguely proposed, and apparently there are back-channel commitments that they're supposed to be agreeing to.
So when Ghalibaf gets in front of the parliament and he makes a statement and the IRGC responds negatively, and we've seen this before, what happens after a certain deal falls through? There's a series of strikes, certain assets in the region change.
Is this what we should expect now?
I don't know. What are you, I'm sorry.
What is the argument?
Because there are no other deals. What are you referring to?
What do you mean other deals? You haven't heard President Trump get in front of the agency and say, I think there's going to be a deal any day now.
But
I mean, he does this multiple
times. There
times.
were ever any other deals.
Again, he has made.
I think he was manipulating markets when he said that there were other deals.
All I'm pointing out is that you're saying, based on Trump saying that we are close to a deal, which he said over 40 times. Correct. That there were other deals. There's zero evidence that there were any other deals.
I'm looking for where the downside is, that I'm pointing out that in diplomacy there's a heavy amount of bluffing.
Who is he bluffing now?
Right.
Again, when I'm seeing the parliament leader, when I'm seeing Ghalibaf, which is now getting ire from the IRGC itself, and then, of course, you have different groups alongside the Strait of Hormuz.
But you know the IRGC runs Iran, okay? So, I mean, this is a more extreme, this is a more extreme
Ghalibaf is going
regime.
against his own regime?
No, he doesn't have the same amount of power as the IRGC. So we already know, we see internally what goes on in Iran. So this is like a backwards argument. The bottom line here is...
But here's the thing. Trump has signed a deal. We don't know what's in it. Okay.
He signed a memorandum of understanding that the UN has to ratify from the Security Council, according to the Bloomberg report.
He has signed something that nobody knows what's in it. And I'm going to play what J.D. Vance says about why this is such a secret that they cannot reveal what's in it. Listen.
The reason why we haven't released it yet is there are some delicate diplomatic things going on where the Iranians, and not just the Iranians, but some of our mediators, the Pakistanis and the Qataris, have asked us to sequence this in the right way. I don't, frankly, fully understand it, but there are sensitivities that exist in the Arab and Muslim world that we're trying to be responsive to. Fundamentally, does it really matter if the deal comes out on Wednesday versus Friday? No. That's why we haven't emphasized it so much, is because at the very latest, the text is going to be out on Friday.
Oh my goodness.
That's why they haven't emphasized the details of what they're calling a deal, the memorandum of understanding, because they don't think that the text matters all that much. And there are some mysterious Arab and Muslim, cultural norms that prevent us from revealing.
Can I acknowledge that I used to work
Why did we announce the deal in the first place?
I used to work in communications at the White House. You don't dump good news on a Friday. They should be wanting to talk about this today and be touting it throughout the whole week. You put out good or bad news on a Friday and do a Friday news dump because it gets lost in the weekend news cycle.
Sarah Matthews makes a very important point here. It's fascinating to watch how some of the very people who once served inside the Trump White House have ended up becoming some of Trump's most outspoken critics. At the same time, there are still plenty of former officials who landed at places like Fox News and continue praising him as if he can never make a mistake. That's what makes comments from people like Sarah Matthews stand out even more, because they're willing to openly call out how absurd some of these arguments and personalities have become. And if the details of this deal are supposedly so confidential that they can't even discuss them publicly, then why not wait until the full agreement is actually released before going on television to promote it? Why spend so much energy defending and selling a deal that you can't clearly explain to the public unless the real goal is simply to shape the narrative? By this point, most people are well aware that Donald Trump has built a reputation over the years as someone who operates like a salesman, surrounded by others who often seem more interested in selling a story than providing straight answers.
On Friday. It makes no sense to me. And if it were such a great deal and there were all these things, but apparently we have to be sensitive to these cultural sensitivities. But to me, that doesn't sound like American.
Why are we being so sensitive to the Iranians? I mean, according to this administration official, we're worried about the internal politics of Iran, as if Iran is a country in which
what did they do to their civilians over the last couple of months?
Okay, that's exactly my point. Iran is not a place
it's the same conversation. Unstable regimes act like unstable regimes.
So why are we bending over? If the argument is that we've put them in such a hard spot because we bombed them to smithereens, why are we bending over backwards to make them feel comfortable, Scott, about signing a deal that actually gives us what we had before and gives them what they did not have before, which is more money, sanctions relief?
Well, you're leaving out the critical piece, which is, according to some reporting and according to the president, the document flatly states Iran will not have a nuclear weapon.
They will not have that. Said.
Exactly. Same thing.
That's great.
And there's nothing
literally no teeth to enforce it.
Well, hold on. In the plain text of the JCPOA, it says Iran will not pursue a nuclear weapon. And this document, as far as we know, says that it reiterates what it has always said, which is that they've been saying for many, many years that they are not pursuing a nuclear weapon.
You believe that?
No, you don't believe it. So then why do you believe it now?
Well, I believe it now because A, we bombed the ever-living crap out of their uranium enrichment facilities last summer, and B, we now have some.
Abby Phillips raises another very solid point here. Scott Jennings and many of the MAGA commentators who frequently appear on her show have spent years arguing that Iran is the world's biggest sponsor of terrorism, that it's among the most dangerous governments in the world, and that it should never be trusted under any circumstances. If that's truly their position, then it seems fair to ask why they would suddenly support making a deal with a country they've consistently described as completely unreliable. How does Iran suddenly become a trustworthy partner when they've spent so long saying the exact opposite? If Iran is really as dangerous and threatening as they constantly claim, then why isn't Scott Jennings taking the position that no agreement should ever be made with them in the first place? Why wouldn't the argument simply be that negotiations are pointless and that other measures are the only path forward? But whenever Donald Trump enters the picture, the standard seems to shift. The claim suddenly becomes that nobody knows how to negotiate or make deals better than he does. They would argue that if anyone could reach an agreement with people they've spent years labeling as terrorists, it would be Donald Trump. That's the story they continue to promote. Even so, it's difficult to ignore the contradiction. For years, and especially throughout recent months, they've repeatedly warned about how dangerous and destructive Iran is, yet now they're praising the possibility of striking a deal with that same country. From my perspective, that's a position that raises plenty of questions and doesn't entirely make sense.
It's an amazing coalition of Arab states in the Gulf working with us to keep on top of the Iranians, to keep it from ever happening. To me, that is the critical
we're giving
thing.
them $300 billion.
That is the critical thing.
More than they got under the Obama.
We don't have
no,
that.
It's more than what
So if we're just going to wish cast and kind of tarot card reading,
we're not wish casting, because if this plan was better than Obama's, okay, if this plan was better, to Sarah's point, than the Obama plan that they signed, they would have been out there screaming it from the rooftops as soon as they made the announcement. But it isn't. So they are trying to BS everyone, and even J.D. Vance, for God's sakes, is like, well, I'm not quite sure why. I don't know. Because there's two different. I'd like to finish my full sentence, please.
Are you
there's two camps here?
$300 billion?
Because I haven't seen it in person yet, correct?
Okay, well, you know that
J.D.
Vance confirmed that fund is in the deal.
Right.
I know.
He said there was.
The MAGA commentator with the beard and glasses is named Tony Kennett. To be honest, I wasn't familiar with him before watching this clip, but he quickly went to one of the most predictable tactics that so many MAGA commentators seem to use whenever they're under pressure. When Tara Setmayer brought up the $300 billion issue, his response was essentially, well, you don't know that. Have you seen the deal? I haven't seen the deal. Nobody has seen the deal. That's the argument they often fall back on when they don't have a strong answer. All of a sudden, the conversation becomes about how nobody was in the room, nobody has read the agreement, and nobody truly knows what was discussed behind closed doors. Yet at the exact same time, they're completely confident that the United States will absolutely prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. The obvious question is, how do they know that? Tony Kennett wasn't sitting in those negotiations. Scott Jennings wasn't there either. None of the people making these claims were directly involved in those discussions. So if their defense is that nobody knows what's in the agreement because it hasn't been released, then how can they also be so certain about the results it will supposedly achieve? If you're going to push back on Tara Setmayer by saying the details surrounding the $300 billion issue remain unknown because the deal hasn't been made public, then you can't immediately turn around and confidently guarantee that the agreement will stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Those two arguments simply don't line up. You can't claim uncertainty when it benefits your position and then switch to certainty when it's politically useful. But that's often the pattern in MAGA politics, where facts seem to shift depending on the situation, and reality is sometimes treated as something that can be adjusted to fit the argument of the moment.
That's not what I said. Let's just play J.D. Vance real quick so that we can all hear it with our own ears.
There's been a lot of misreporting on this, and people have said, oh, is the United States going to give Iran billions of dollars? No, it'll be very, very crystal clear. Even if the Iranians do everything contemplated by this deal, not a penny of American money flows to Iran. We're saying that if the Iranians change their behavior, we're going to let some of these other countries invest in rebuilding their country and creating some prosperity for their people.
So note that I never said that would be American dollars. Why did I not say that? Because it's a fund that may be funded by someone else. But the question is, does it even matter? The argument against the JCPOA was that unfreezing Iranian funds, which again, not American dollars, Iranian funds, was facilitating the Iranian regime to pursue their terroristic aims because, as the saying goes, money is fungible. You give them $300 billion that they don't have to spend of their own funds to rebuild, they can use that money elsewhere. So how do you argue that it does not matter that there are funds writ large that are orders of magnitude more than the JCPOA being contemplated to be given to Iran?
So, two reasons. Number one, because I have heard all of this before, and it has all fallen through before, with the United States having to approve that the UAE gives money up from its own coffers, maybe taken from Iranian assets, maybe just UAE dollars. Let's go to the full there and steelman the argument. The United States still has to approve that release based on actions that Iran takes. This is not an immediate hesto presto, boom, the deal is signed, the money starts flowing like water into the reflecting pool.
That's what they claim, that when this is signed, the sanctions relief happens immediately and the oil gets to flow
Vance,
through the
since we're
strait.
citing Vance here.
So As a result of that, it doesn't matter where that $300 billion comes from or where the sanctions relief comes from. They're still going to get the money to do whatever they need to do with it, whether it's continue to be the state sponsor of terror, whether it is to continue their nuclear program. We don't know. But I remember, because I was one of those people that was critical of the Obama deal 10 years ago, that this was giving them this money to rebuild their country, whether it comes from the UAE or not, or whomever, what coalition. It's like if we started the Marshall Plan to rebuild Germany, but the Nazis were still in power. I thought this was supposed to be about regime change. Donald Trump himself was worried about the Iranian people. He said, you go out there, we bomb them, go out there and take your country over again. What happened to that? That was dust in the wind now. So he has changed his tune so many times because he doesn't know what he's doing. And you have two camps competing. You've got J.D. Vance's camp with J.D. Kushner and Witkoff, the two real estate developers who are probably going to get a cut of whatever's happening in the redevelopment. Then you have the Ratcliffe, Rubio, Hegseth wing, which is intelligence, Department of Defense. And they're going, whoa, wait a minute. We don't trust what's going on here. You have multiple Republicans also that are upset about this.
They are nowhere to be.
Tara Setmayer was absolutely making a strong case there. At its core, her argument is fairly straightforward. She believes Donald Trump often appears unsure of what he's doing, whether the issue involves foreign policy, international negotiations, or the day-to-day management of government. She argues that the same problems continue showing up again and again. What remains surprising to many people is that after more than a decade of watching these debates play out, the United States has elected Donald Trump president not just once, but twice. For his critics, that's something they view as a significant mark on the country's political legacy. I also thought it was interesting when Tony Kennett brought up the comparison involving water and money flowing into the reflecting pool. It was an analogy that may not have worked the way he hoped, because in a lot of ways it ended up reinforcing the criticism being made. The reflecting pool itself has faced recurring maintenance issues, including the return of algae problems, and as Kara pointed out, that's exactly the type of example critics use when they talk about a lack of basic competence. Her position is that if an administration struggles to effectively manage relatively simple responsibilities, it's reasonable for people to question whether it can successfully handle a major international crisis or oversee complex peace negotiations. So what do you make of all this? Do you agree with Tara Setmayer's view that the entire situation has started to resemble a political circus? As she argued, there are ongoing concerns about business interests and real estate figures connected to Trump's circle potentially benefiting from decisions made by the administration. Critics say the pattern appears to be one controversy after another, creating serious questions about motives, transparency, and accountability. And what are your thoughts on Tony Kennett? I wasn't very familiar with him before seeing this discussion, but he seems to follow a similar style to other prominent MAGA commentators such as Scott Jennings and Ben Ferguson, who regularly appear on Abby Phillip's show. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this proposed deal could become another major political headache, or do you believe it will ultimately work out as supporters expect? And what did you think about Tara Setmayer's performance on Abby Phillip's panel? She continues to be one of the most outspoken, direct, and memorable voices in these debates. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments.